Hey, what's up? It's Karen San Diego. Welcome back to my channel and welcome if you are new. So today's a content day for me. I'm about to film a few videos related to my arm lift. So if you do not follow me on Instagram and TikTok, then you're not going to know this. But for those of you who do, and if you don't, make sure you are. I am getting an arm lift soon. So this has been long awaited for me. I've been wanting an arm lift for a while, but I'm finally able to go ahead and pull the trigger on that. So very, very soon I will be having an arm lift done. So yeah, go to Instagram and TikTok for that. I'm going to have some content coming on YouTube about that soon. That's what I'm filming today, actually. But since I was about to do my makeup, I wanted to go ahead and just hop on and do a little chat about something that I haven't talked about yet on my channel, and that is why did I quit 75 Soft? So maybe a few months ago, I launched on my channel, I did a video about it, that I was going to be doing 75 Soft. And I talked about, what the parameters for this challenge was going to be for me. And if you aren't aware, I think it was just like working out, I think 5 or 6 days a week is what I had said. It was eating really clean. It was, I'm trying to remember what the other ones were, but I'm going to put the graphic on the screen so you know what exactly the challenge was. But it wasn't anything that was like super crazy. I had intentionally made the challenge so that I would be able to stick with it, really, because I was looking at what originally I had thought I was going to do 75 hard. Like that was my original plan. But after like really looking at what 75 hard was, I was like, this doesn't seem, at least not yet, it doesn't seem like something that's attainable for me. So I ended up going with 75 Soft and then just kind of tailoring it to what I felt like would work for me. So in doing that, I came up with those like pretty simple rules that I would have to follow. And it wasn't because I was like failing or anything like that, or I felt like I was in a bad place in my journey, because honestly, I really wasn't. Like I had a little bit of regain, but part of that regain was actually intentional, because I think I've talked about this in an update video before. When I had got down to my lowest possible, like my lowest weight ever that I had ever seen on the scale, which was like 158 pounds, which for some people, I realized that everybody carries weight differently. So for some of us, 158 would look differently than it did on me. And I felt like for me in particular, 158 was kind of like too small for me. And not even as far as my body, but I felt like even my face, like I have a naturally very defined face. And at 158, I felt like my features, it didn't complement my features to me. I'll put it that way. Like I felt like my face was starting to look really sunken in. And I felt like I was getting to that point, like, when they talk about like Ozempic face, I don't take Ozempic, but I felt like I was kind of looking like that when I was at my lowest. So I did want to, get my resting weight to be a little bit higher. So at that point, that's what I was doing. But even with the fact that I was intentionally like trying to gain weight, I wanted to go about it in a different way than I felt like I had been doing up until that point. Like I wanted to eat even cleaner, and I wanted to work out more to try to like really build a body. And honestly, even at that point, I was doing all of those things. Like I do eat pretty clean for the most part. And at that time, I really was working out like really consistently. I was already seeing improvement in the gym. So really the point of what I wanted to do was just to really, and I talk about it in the video. I'll try to link the video down below. But I was really like, my whole point was I really wanted to just kind of up the discipline. Like I wanted to just be super disciplined, more disciplined than I already was at that point. And I felt like the challenge was going to be a good way to get myself to that like little bit of extra layer of discipline that I felt like I was missing. And I want to just make it clear that like it wasn't that I was missing discipline. It was that I could have been doing better. And I feel like if you watch a lot of like manifesting your dream life type content, the main thing that people always talk about is showing up for yourself like your higher self would. So whatever it is that you want to do in life, you should start now showing up for yourself the way that person does. So if the person that you want to be one day is someone who is super fit and takes fitness really seriously and works out often, you got to start doing those things. Even if it's in small steps, you got to start doing the things to show up for yourself as your higher self. So that was the point of the whole challenge. I say all of that to say that that was the point of this entire challenge, was to really just like elevate and get more disciplined. Because for me, I have never in my life been a person who couldn't lose weight. My problem was always maintenance. Like, I could lose weight. I had lost weight on my own prior to VSG. My problem was that because I now know that a big part of it is my PCOS, but I have a problem maintaining my weight. And a big part of that is a lack of discipline. Because for me, because of my PCOS, me and carbs, like if I overdo it and if I'm not disciplined enough with my diet and overdo it, like I always talk about, like carbs are not bad. You should definitely be getting carbs into your diet. You should not be over consuming though. And my problem is I would be over consuming and lacking the discipline to stop me from over consuming. That's always been my problem. And even after VSG, sometimes, not all the time, because for the most part I did good, but sometimes I would definitely overconsume. So I did the challenge to try to combat that and just do better. Really, like that was really my only goal, to get myself more disciplined. So it just kind of felt like this is just what I do. This is how I live my life. This is how I eat. These are the habits that I have. That's where I wanted to go with that. Building the habits that I need to have in order to truly be successful. Like that's really what my ultimate goal was with the challenge. So flash forward, I start the challenge, and I'll put the rules on the screen again so you know what I'm talking about. Keep us all. But with this challenge, I get on the ground running, right? I'm doing great. I stuck to it. I think I got to like, it might have been like somewhere between like maybe like day 15 I might have got to before I finally gave up. But let's talk about what was going on during the challenge. So the first thing I wanted to do was work out 6 days a week. One of those 6 days I allowed to be like a movement day. So what I was doing was, one out of those days, since it was a movement day, I would really just like go to the park with Ryan and specifically try to pick a park that had like a trail. So I would usually bring her a bike. We would do the trail. She would ride her bike so that she's not tired, because Ryan is the queen of saying like, my legs are too tired to do this, right? So to avoid her saying that, I would bring her bike. So she would be on her bike and I would walk. And if Chad was with us, then I would walk, and in between the walking, I would start running, and then they would just catch up to me. And I did that I got to day 15, right? So we're doing it like that. Everything is going good. And the thing about this is, when it comes to the day where Ryan is just, where like I'm just playing and it's just like a movement day, that was naturally already part of our routine anyway. I do just naturally go outside with Ryan all the time. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I do all the time. Just like we go outside. I love to ride, to play hula hoop. And like we do things to find ways to stay active, like on the regular. Like that's just part of our normal routine. So that wasn't like, it wasn't a challenge, because it was something that I already did. Now, the other days, the 5 out of those 6 days were actually in the gym. So that was every day, Monday to Friday, I was in the gym. Whether I went to work or not, it didn't matter. If I went to work like in person, because I work hybrid, if I went to work in person, I was going to the gym after. If I worked from home that day, I would go to the gym before, so prior to 9 o'clock. So I would just go right after we drop Ryan to school, I would go straight to the gym. And that was pretty much that was pretty much my routine anyway. I didn't do 6 days a week. I would do more like 3 or 4, but it wasn't like I was adding like a crazy amount to my routine. It was really just like I added in an extra day and a half, because I would say the one day I added was the day that we would just walk, and then I also added in one more like actual exercise day, like in gym, lifting, cardio, all that in the gym. So those 2 days were added. Everything else was already my routine. Then when it comes to food, my thing was to just like eat cleaner. And with this, I already, for the most part, ate clean. And with my rules, I really didn't want to restrict myself. So I tried to do, for the most part, like if you want it, cook it type thing. So like if I wanted cupcakes or something like that, I had to make it. Which I would call my house an ingredient house anyway. Like I really don't keep, other than like Ryan snacks, which I don't eat. I don't keep a lot of like treats in the house. Like a lot of people ask me about snacking and like how do I avoid snacking? Honestly, I avoid snacking by not having snacks. Like if it isn't here, I won't eat it. If it's here, I might eat it. And just to, make sure I stay on top of things, I just don't keep that stuff in my house. And if I do, I usually try to make sure it's something that like Chad and Ryan will also eat, so I'm not eating it by myself, and so that it quickly finishes, so that it's out my house. Like I really do not like to keep those type of things in my house. So anyway, if I wanted it, I would make it, and I did. And that way I'm also able to make sure the ingredients are a little better. That was also pretty normal for my routine. When it comes to food, I don't think I didn't really feel restricted because I wasn't really doing anything that different. Like I don't really eat fast food like that naturally. Well, really since surgery. Like if I eat fast food, it might be Chick-fil-A. And even that, like it's not something I do often. Like that's just not the way I like to eat. So the diet part of it wasn't much. Now that I went all through the backstory of what exactly I was doing on 75 Soft, how that was going, and the fact that it wasn't stressful. I want to preface this, that it wasn't stressful. Like the rules, like still to this day, if you want to do that challenge, I still recommend it if challenges are your thing. Because I do think that the rules that I had put in place for that particular challenge was made to be something that wasn't going to be too much. That being said, for me in particular, I felt like, I don't know, something about having parameters, like strict parameters like that, like the fact that it was a challenge, that alone was just getting to my head. Like, and it wasn't even like getting to my head in the sense of like me feeling overwhelmed by the deliverables of the challenge. Like it really wasn't that, because like I said, so many of the things that I had set in place for this challenge were things that I was already doing. So like in theory, this challenge should have been easy peasy. It should not have been a problem. I should have gotten through it with no issues at all. Got to the 45 days or whatever and been fine. But for whatever reason, the longer I did the challenge, the more I felt like, I don't want to say my mental health depleting, because I think that's a bit dramatic. It wasn't that my mental health was depleting. It was just, it wasn't good for my mental health, is how I'll say that. Because it made me be way too critical of myself in a way that I don't feel like was healthy. I got like obsessive about like, I could not miss one of those gym days. And whenever I did, like I felt really bad about it in a way that was not healthy. Something about, like, I don't know how to explain it, but something about my routines being tied to a challenge just was not working out for me. Like mentally, I don't know what it is, but challenges are just not, like, they stress me out. Like I know recently, like I do have ADHD. So I know, like, recently I look online and I'm constantly seeing like all these things that apparently are ADHD symptoms that I didn't even know was related to my ADHD. And I saw that potentially things like this could be one, but I don't do well with challenges. Like, once you tell, like, I could be running naturally outside, like I'm just running. And then if you come, and I'm running real fast. And if somebody comes along and was like, oh, this is a race, there's people trying to like race you, I'm gonna freak out. And I'm gonna stop running because I don't want to compete. Like, I'm not a competitive person. I've always been the person you don't want to be on my team when we're playing a game because I'm not gonna compete. Like, the moment anybody, like, when I used to work in sales, like, I used to work in luxury designer sales. I worked at like Saks, Bergdorf, like those places, doing luxury sales. And in those environments, I even did electronics. Like, I worked at the Sony store when that was still a thing. What the hell? What dropped? Whoa. But yeah, I worked at the Sony store when that was still a thing. And at that time, I was a commissioned employee. So sales, once again. And you kind of have to compete with your coworkers to get customers. Same thing when I did luxury sales. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. You start competing with me, I'm gonna let you win because I'm not doing that. So I don't know. This challenge felt very similar to that, and challenges as a whole just kind of feel very similar to that, versus when there isn't a label on it and I'm just making the better choices and being conscious. Like, for whatever reason, that just works better for me than being like, this is a challenge to do XYZ. I don't know, something about my particular flavor of weird. Like, I don't know. It was just messing with me. And I got to a place where I started feeling, and once again, I don't want to use words that aren't necessarily like the accurate word to use for the thing, but I started feeling, I could describe it as maybe like kind of depressed because of it. Like, I started feeling myself getting really sad, and really sad to the point where like I knew nothing was actually wrong with me. Like, nothing had happened to make me sad. That's a lot. That's a lot, but I'm going to have to do the same over here. Yeah, nothing had actually happened to make me feel a type of way, but I just felt sad. And that was during the time of this challenge, so I just know it was related. And the feeling of just being sad with very little explanation going into it, I'm no stranger to that. I've talked about that before. I've talked about mental health struggles before in the past on this channel. So it's not like I'm confused. Like, I've never felt sad for no reason before. I definitely have. And yes, I'm in therapy. But with the challenge, I noticed myself, like, I hadn't been in that mental space in a while. And I noticed while doing this challenge that I most certainly was slipping into that type of mental space because of the challenge. And the thing about me, once I get into that type of mental space, everything gets thrown off balance. Everything. So I noticed that I started feeling really sad, even though it wasn't even like I was failing at the challenge, because I was still doing it. I was still going to the gym constantly, doing my six days of working out, one day of just kind of like walking or something like that. But I was doing my fitness routine. I was eating clean. I was doing all the things, but I was miserable, like with very little explanation, just miserable. And I started to realize that the way I was feeling was like how I used to feel back in the day when I was constantly dieting. And the way it felt when like not seeing it work. And that's also not the case, because I wasn't really weighing myself during this time, because weight loss really wasn't the goal. The goal was more to build strong habits. But regardless, the feeling that I had while doing the challenge was very close to the feeling that I had back in the day when I would be very much engulfed in diet culture. And one thing about me on this journey is part of what I'm doing on this journey, it's not just about weight loss. It's also about learning how to really be in tune with my body and really pay attention to what cues my body is giving me, and be able to try to differentiate the difference between me just like being lazy or stubborn or something like that, and my body actually giving me signals that something isn't healthy for me. And I think sometimes we tend to forget mental health when we think about what is healthy for us and what is not. But for me, the 75 soft challenge, or any challenge at that, just did not feel like something that was mentally healthy for me. And my body was being very, very clear about that. Like, there was no, ooh, you know what, forget, you stay off. There was no like, oh, maybe it's fine, maybe I'm okay, maybe, no. I was not okay, and I knew that, and I leaned into that, and I was just like paying attention to how I actually felt in that moment to make sure that I was listening and doing what was healthiest for my body. Because listen, what happened when I actually stopped doing it and actually going through that process of listening to my body, that also takes a while. Because for me, the mental state that doing the challenge put me in sent me to a place where I started not reverting back to old habits, but kind of reverting back to old habits. Like, I was eating more than I'd be eating. Let's put it that way. Like, I was definitely eating. I definitely gained some weight. Not a crazy amount of weight. Like, we're talking like 5 pounds, right? But it's not like the 5 pounds came out of nowhere. The 5 pounds came from the fact that I was not on top of eating right, the fact that I was like really sad and making poor choices, not necessarily overeating, but just not making the best food choices at that time. And that was just a result of where my mind was at because of doing the challenge. So once like I stopped doing the challenge, my brain kind of spiraled for a bit there. I'm going to be honest about that. My brain kind of spiraled. I was making poor food choices, gained a little bit of weight, and then I was able to stop and pull myself out of it. But the challenge really did kind of set me into a negative mental space that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Like, I didn't think that doing a challenge like that would set me off mentally in the way that it did, but it did. And now what I've been doing is pretty much just working to undo that. And when I say undo that, I do not mean undo any regain. Like, that is not a goal of mine. I think regain is very normal. I think it is normal for your weight to fluctuate. I think what's not normal is to constantly be on the scale to where you'll always notice when your weight fluctuates. But I think it is definitely normal for it to happen, like for some sort of weight to be gained. And I also think that especially when you're gaining like small amounts of weight, like what I did gain, being able to notice it without even needing to get on the scale, like being able to just notice the change in your body and immediately do something about it is really the best thing that you can do, right? So once I noticed that my habits were changing and not for the better, I was able to pull it together. I also was able to recognize where I had went wrong, really. And that was really like taking something that was simply me building better habits to be better. Like, that was part of this journey for me, was about just simply building the habits that I need. And I thought that doing that through doing a challenge was going to be the best way to build those habits and to get myself living a healthier lifestyle. And what I learned is that that's not the best way for me. I'm sitting here editing this video right now, and I realized that I forgot to mention, notice that that's a habit that I have in life, is when I feel defeated about something I will just like turn into a potato and completely retreat. And it's not a healthy thing to do. And it's something that I have since noticed and have been working to fix, really. But I did notice that as soon as things weren't working out with the challenge and I decided that it was time to stop doing it, although like I was aware of what was going on, I went to Instagram to tell everybody on Instagram that I was not doing the challenge anymore. And like I said, I got a lot of positive response to that. However, the effects mentally were still there, and it caused me to really fall out of my routine in a way that I don't feel like I had fell out of my routine before. And although I started the challenge to get more discipline, when I stopped the challenge, it made it even worse than it was prior to starting it. So now I'm really, really focused on building those habits back. But I, for a while there, was experiencing just a lot of like self-doubt, and the self-doubt turned into me just having a lack of drive and desire to do anything. Making poor food choices, but also not moving my body as much as I really should be moving my body. And that was not like, I enjoy working out. So to go from doing the thing that I love, which is working out, to not, and just kind of just like getting really sluggish and not feeling like myself, I find that that's a real habit for me. Like when something doesn't work out, I find it just sending me down a spiral in a way that I'm not proud of. And I don't want that to be a reoccurring theme in my life. Like I want to be able to get to a place where things don't work out and it doesn't cause everything else in my life to continually spiral downward. I want to be a dust it off and keep going type of person. But in this case, I wasn't that. Like it caused me to really get back into some bad habits that I am actively working to get out of. So things have gotten better since. We're talking about like, it was maybe like a month or two ago. We're getting better now. I have realized I have checked myself and I'm moving forward. But I just wanted to really be honest and say that like stopping that challenge and not completing it really did mess with me in a way that caused me to backslide a bit. So like I'm gonna do some more like what I eat in the days, especially given my upcoming surgery, my brachioplasty. Just showing like just some of the shifts that I've made since then to try to build these habits back. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I added that in, editing me. We're gonna go back to past me, well, from like 30 minutes ago when I was filming this. For me, it's best to just, build the habits through implementing them into my everyday life. Like it's not a challenge, it's just what I do. So for example, in doing some more research, I learned things like it's best to have like a breakfast with just like eggs, some fruit, like eggs and berries are a good thing to have for breakfast, not to spike your blood sugar. And as someone with PCOS, this is something that's going to be important to me, eating that way. I'm looking a lot into like cycle syncing and like learning what to eat, like depending on where I'm at in my cycle. I haven't fully mastered that yet, but I'm learning about it and just learning how to make better choices in general. I want to do like some sort of video about the way that I grocery shop, because I feel like even with that, like I have like a pretty good thing going there, but just really like learning about my body in a way that's going to help me make better choices for my body versus trying to challenge myself to make the choices for a designated period of time. Because in my mind anyway, I feel like the thing about challenges is that what happens when the challenge is over? Like the 45 days is up. Now what? Do I have a cupcake? Like, So I feel like for me, and that's not to say that challenges can't work for other people, but for me in particular, I don't think that's the best way for me to reach my goals. And I had to be real with myself and understand that. And because I have a public platform and because I openly talked about the challenge, it was a little difficult to like admit that like I failed, but I let y'all know immediately. Instagram anyway. I talked about it on Instagram because I feel like I use all my platforms differently, so it really is best to be everywhere. But on Instagram in particular, I was talking about the fact that like I stopped. So once I stopped, I let y'all know that I stopped, even though like I hate to have to admit defeat, but it is what it is. Like I have to be honest at the end of the day. I completely lost my train of thought. But I think I was talking about Instagram and how I told Instagram about the fact that I stopped doing this, but I wanted to make sure to come to YouTube because I realized that like I'm thinking everybody knew that I had stopped, but I realized I never updated Instagram the way I had updated. I never updated YouTube the way I had already updated Instagram, so I wanted to come over here and give y'all a little update too. It's just easy on Instagram to jump on stories and to talk. So that's how I end up always like giving information over there first. Same with TikTok. It's easier to just pick up my phone and just talk in a way that it's not as easy here. And in talking about it on Instagram, I was able to like, once I said it, like I got a lot of DMs from people who were like, girl, I don't want to say nothing, but I've been stopped doing that challenge. Like it was not working out for me either. Like a lot of people were able to resonate with that. And that is my favorite thing about Instagram and about social media in general. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, anything. Like I love being able to just like talk to people who are like going through similar things to what I'm going through, because I feel like it just makes me feel so much better knowing that it isn't just me. Like prior to me having this platform, and I talk a lot about the fact that like I've been on a weight loss journey damn near my whole life, right? And previously I have always been made to feel, and when I say made to feel, I'm talking about in my own head. Like didn't nobody say this to me, but when you don't have like people in your real life who are really like going through what you're going through, it's really easy to just feel alone in the things that you're dealing with and feel like nobody understands. And you start feeling like something is wrong with me, that I am the way that I am. Like prior to social media with this challenge, if I had stopped doing this challenge, like prior to having, to like creating content online or not even being a content creator, like prior to just having social media, I would have just felt like a failure and I would have just went deeper and deeper into depression and just like sulked about it, for lack of better words. But because I was able to come online and talk about it with people, and if I didn't have a platform, I probably would have went to like one of the Facebook groups or something like that. But because I had access to a community, I was able to talk about it and find out that it was not just me. It was not just me who was feeling like just having a challenge, especially after having bariatric surgery. Like I feel like this surgery is a challenge. It is a challenge. Every single day is a challenge. Like literally figuring out how to live your life completely different to what you had been doing before. That is a challenge. So adding more challenge onto the challenge was too much for me. Too much for me. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. And I don't feel like that is like failure. Although at first I kind of did feel like that. But after really reflecting on it, I don't think that that is failure. I think it's just really being self-aware and understanding what does and doesn't work for you is part of just like really being like genuinely self-aware, knowing what's best for you, knowing what does not work for you. And I've been a victim of, in the past, just kind of doing things because other people were doing it and then being really mad at myself when it didn't work for me. Even when we think about like certain diet crazes, right? I would do it because everybody else did and it worked for them. So obviously it should work for me. And then when it didn't, would feel really down about myself. But in reality, it worked for them because it was for them and it wasn't for me. And that's okay. Like understanding truly that is truly, truly okay is like part of growth for me. No, understanding when something works for me versus when something doesn't work for me. And I guess long story short, 75 soft didn't work for me. Does that mean that I'm giving up on discipline? No. It means that I just need to find a better way to work on the same goal. And I think the way to do that, for me anyway, is I think it's called habit stacking. So it's basically like you work on a habit at a time. So for me, something that I know I want to be doing more is starting the day with food, not coffee. And not just any food, but food that's going to give me the best chance at the day, right? So a breakfast that I have been really loving recently is starting with just like eggs, maybe some like a scramble with like eggs, spinach, maybe some turkey bacon or something like that, mushrooms. Like I love that type of scramble with some fruit on the side, right? And by fruit, I mean berries, because they're very low in sugar. They will not spike your blood sugar. And it's good to have something in the morning that isn't going to start your day by spiking your blood sugar and I think like your cortisol levels. Like starting the day that way, I think is what's best for me. And really getting into that habit of making sure, like I did that today, had my breakfast, waited a little while, had my coffee right before it was time to actually like get to my day. And I think for me, that works so much better. Also, consequence of that does help with weight loss, although weight loss is not fully my goal. I wouldn't mind losing maybe like the 5 pounds that I gained. But I personally feel like I look better and I look healthier with a little bit more weight on me than I had when I was at my lowest. So I don't mind. Being a little bit bigger. I think for me, like that like 170 spot, and right now I'm 175, right? So it's 5 pounds. But I would like to get back to 170 and not 175. Like it's really the smallest thing, which means it's like small habits that help get you to that. I still want to make sure that I'm eating and I'm eating carbs, but I think like lunch would be a better time to really have the carbs in there and just trying to build the habit of naturally eating that way versus challenging myself to do it for 45 days. It's like, this ain't a 45-day thing. I'm not trying to drop weight for a vacation. Like I'm trying to really build a lifestyle forever. And that means building habits that you are going to maintain long term. Even in the challenge where I'm like, if you want the sweet, you got to make it. Yeah, that works sometimes. But sometimes I'm going to buy the cookies. I'm going to buy the thing. But I have to train myself. Maybe first thing in the morning isn't the time to eat that. Maybe having just buy one versus buying a lot and training myself to really do better in that way, I think would be a lot more beneficial than challenging myself to do it for 45 days. That's just me. I know a lot of people, like I can think of one girl that I know that like I used to work with, that she would do challenges often and she thrives off competition. That girl thrives off of competition. And for her, a challenge would be the perfect thing because that's her thing. Competition, she goes crazy. She loves that. She's real competitive. So a competition, especially if she got other people involved, like I did, like I opened the challenge up to you guys. You guys were doing it too. Someone with that type of personality, I would say that might be like more like type A personalities. They would thrive with 75 soft. For me, I don't know, after type A, what is the other? It's like type A, B, C, D, I don't know. But I have one of those other personalities where I do not thrive in competition. I don't. It's not going to work for me. Understanding who you are and crafting your life based off of what works for you, that is how you actually end up successful. Really intuitively understanding who you are, being self-aware, and building your life for yourself that actually feels good for you. Because happiness is going to help you with all the other things. Like you should not be doing stuff that stresses you out for the sake of like seeming like you got it all together. Basically, I say all that to say, I stopped doing 75 soft because it was messing with my head and felt way too close to diet culture for my personal comfort. Like that wasn't, it felt toxic. It felt unhealthy for me based off my personality and how I tend to approach things. So the moment I was able to realize that was the moment I was like, no more. Now I'm back to the drawing board and trying to find a way for me that works to really hold me accountable and help me build what I need to build in order to stay focused. For me, I did not get this surgery to feel still tied down by diet culture. I truly wanted to be able to just naturally build the habits that I would need to be successful long term, to the point where food wouldn't be something that I would have to consciously think about all the time, and would instead be able to just live and eat the things that I want to eat and do the things that I want to do, except the things that I want to eat would be healthier naturally because I would have built the habit to choose those foods, and the things that I want to do would be more active because I would naturally build those habits. For example, before, I was a let's hop in the car and drive type of girl. Now I'm like, oh, that's only like 10 minutes away. Let's walk. That's a natural, healthy habit that I've built through this surgery that I did not have before. Or like going somewhere and wanting to do the hike, going somewhere and wanting to do the thing that was more active versus just sitting and chilling. Those are really just the habits I'm trying to build, and I'm doing that. It's a work in progress. I'm not perfect. Just because I post online, and think about anybody that posts online, just because you have a public platform does not make you a perfect person. So yeah, sometimes I try things and I fail, and I get back on the horse and I keep trying, and I try a new way to do it to reach the same goal, just in a way that feels better for me. So if this video resonated with you in any way, let me know in the comments. Did you try the challenge? Did it work for you? Did you finish it? Did you not finish it? Where were you at in yours 75 soft challenge? So if you like this video, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.
Where in the world is Karen San Diego? From BK to Belly, it's anywhere she say so. She changing your life, can see it straight through her eyes.